Welcome back to USA Coins 69, where everyday change turns into unexpected treasure. If you've ever glanced at a quarter and tossed it aside without a second thought, then today's video might just change how you look at coins forever. Because today, we're diving deep into the story of a true American classic, the 1973 Washington Quarter Dollar, a coin that may look ordinary on the surface but can be hiding a small fortune in plain sight. And yes, if you stick around until the end, you'll find out how this humble little quarter could be worth a staggering $70,000. Now let's take a journey through time. The year was 1973. America was in the midst of transition, post-Vietnam, post-60s revolution. The economy was shifting, inflation was creeping up, and everyday life was starting to change in noticeable ways. But amid all the headlines and history, the U.S. Mint continued its work, quietly releasing coins into circulation that, decades later, would become valuable collectibles for anyone lucky enough to find them. The Washington Quarter has always been more than just pocket change. First minted in 1932 to celebrate George Washington's 200th birthday, the quarter quickly became one of the most widely used coins in American commerce. But not all quarters are created equal, and the 1973 version holds secrets that most people don't know about. Let's start with the design. On the obverse, we see the familiar profile of George Washington himself. His image has remained largely unchanged for decades, but collectors know that the details matter. From the sharpness of the hair to the clarity of the word liberty, and the iconic phrase, "In God we trust," everything must be crisp and clean to give the coin any real value. Flip the coin over, and you'll be greeted by the majestic eagle design, wings spread wide, perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches below. It's strong, patriotic, and full of symbolism. But beyond its artistic value, the condition of the reverse, especially the fine details in the feathers and lettering, can make or break its desirability in the eyes of collectors. But here's the real question: what makes the 1973 Washington Quarter so special? It all comes down to mint marks, condition, and rare minting errors. In 1973, quarters were minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, marked with a D; and San Francisco, marked with an S. Most of the quarters went into regular circulation and suffered years of wear and tear. However, some rare pieces were struck with extraordinary quality, especially proof coins from San Francisco or coins with unexpected minting flaws. These errors can include things like double die obverse, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or even coins struck on the wrong metal. These aren't just mistakes, they're opportunities. To a trained collector, a minting error can turn a regular coin into something one-of-a-kind, and extremely valuable. Even without errors, a 1973 Washington Quarter in mint state condition, meaning it looks exactly like the day it left the mint, with zero wear, can bring in impressive prices. But if you add a rare minting flaw to the mix, now we're talking serious money. And here's where it gets really exciting. Imagine you're going through an old box of coins passed down from a relative. You pick up a 1973 quarter and notice something odd. The surface is clean, shiny, almost flawless. You grab a magnifying glass and check for the mint mark. Maybe it's an S for San Francisco, or maybe there's a doubling in the lettering. You do a little research, and suddenly it hits you. You may be holding a coin that's not worth 25 cents, but enough to change your life. Because here's the truth that blows people's minds: a rare 1973 Washington Quarter, in pristine, uncirculated condition with a notable error or proof quality strike, has been known to sell at auction for as much as $70,000. That's right, $70,000 for a single quarter. Just imagine. A coin that once bought a pack of gum could now buy you a new car, or even a down payment on a house. All because of a little attention to detail, and a lot of history hiding in plain sight. So next time you get change at the store, or stumble across an old collection, don't ignore the quarters. Look for that 1973 date. Examine the surface. Check the mint mark. You never know, you could be holding one of the most valuable coins ever to pass through your hands. Today's video might just convince you to take a second look, because one very specific coin from the United States could be worth a serious chunk of money. And I'm talking about the 1967 Washington Quarter Dollar. That's right, a coin that might look ordinary at first glance, but could secretly be a jackpot waiting to happen. Now, here's something interesting. The 1967 Washington quarter might not look too different from the other quarters you've seen. Same George Washington profile, same familiar shape and feel. But don't let its common appearance fool you. This coin holds a surprising secret that could make it incredibly valuable to collectors. Let's rewind to 1967 for a moment. This was a unique period in U.S. coin history. The U.S. Mint had recently stopped using silver in quarters, and starting in 1965, coins were made with a copper-nickel-clad composition instead of the traditional 90% silver. But here's the twist: in 1967, the U.S. Mint decided not to use mint marks on coins. That means you won't see a little D for Denver or S for San Francisco on your 1967 quarter. All the coins, whether minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, were deliberately struck without a mint mark. Why did the mint do this? Because there was a growing frenzy around coin collecting at the time. People were hoarding coins, especially ones with mint marks, in hopes that they would increase in value. So to calm the chaos and reduce hoarding, the mint made a bold move: no mint marks for 3 straight years, 1965, 1966, and 1967. If every 1967 quarter has no mint mark, you might wonder, what makes this coin so special? Isn't it just a regular quarter? Well, here's where it gets fascinating. Most of these coins were heavily circulated. They passed through thousands of hands, used for candy, bus fares, phone calls, you name it. So, finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is already pretty rare. But that's just the beginning. Some 1967 quarters have incredibly sharp details, superior luster, and very strong strikes, which means they were among the first coins struck from a new die at the mint. These coins are known as full strike or high-grade coins, and they're incredibly desirable to collectors. Grading companies like PCGS or NGC look for coins that are in the highest possible condition, usually graded as MS-65, MS-66, or even MS-67. And those high grades are where the real value begins to soar. But wait, there's more. A small number of 1967 quarters have been discovered with unique errors, like double dies, off-center strikes, or other rare minting anomalies. These errors happened by accident during the minting process, but they make the coins unique and incredibly valuable to serious collectors. Imagine owning a coin with a clear double die where the letters or numbers appear to be doubled. Or an off-center strike where the design is partially missing because the blank coin wasn't perfectly aligned. These mistakes are rare, and in the coin world, rarity equals value. There are also rumors in the coin collecting community that a very limited number of 1967 quarters were struck on leftover silver planchets, the metal discs that should have been retired after 1964. If one of those ever surfaces and is authenticated, it would be a once-in-a-lifetime find. So, how can you tell if your 1967 Washington quarter is the real deal and possibly worth a fortune? Start by checking its condition. Does it still have a strong shine? Are the details on Washington's hair and the eagle on the reverse sharp and clear? If so, that's a good start. Next, you might want to have it professionally graded. A coin grading service can examine it under magnification, identify any rare errors, and assign a grade that will help determine its market value. Even a small difference in grade, like MS-65 versus MS-66, can mean the difference between a $20 coin and a coin worth thousands. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. If you happen to own a 1967 Washington quarter in near-perfect uncirculated condition, especially one with a unique error or a strong strike, it could fetch an incredible amount at auction. One such rare specimen has been valued at an astonishing $75,000. Yes, you heard that right. $75,000 for a single quarter. A coin you might have in an old jar or tucked away in a collection could be worth more than some cars, more than some college tuitions, even more than a down payment on a house. So, take a moment and check your change. Look through your old collections. That plain-looking 1967 Washington quarter without a mint mark might not be so plain after all. You never know, your pocket change could be your lucky ticket to a small fortune. Today, we're diving into a piece of American history that might just be hiding in your pocket, your old coin jar, or that dusty drawer in your grandparents' house. I'm talking about none other than the 1971 Washington quarter dollar, specifically the ones with mint marks. Now, don't be fooled by its everyday appearance. This coin might seem like just another quarter, but it could be worth far more than 25 cents. In fact, one of these coins has been known to bring in a life-changing amount at auction, but more on that in just a bit. Let's start with a little backstory. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American currency since 1932, first introduced to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Over the years, it has gone through a few changes, but the design on the 1971 quarter stayed true to its iconic roots: Washington's profile on the obverse side, and the American bald eagle with spread wings on the reverse. But here's where it gets interesting. In 1971, quarters were struck at multiple U.S. mint locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Denver have a D mint mark, San Francisco coins carry an S, and Philadelphia coins, at that time, had no mint mark at all. The mint mark can be found on the obverse side of the coin, just to the right of George Washington's ponytail. Now, what makes a 1971 quarter valuable? After all, millions were minted, right? True. But not all coins are created equal. While most were circulated and worn down over time, there are a few factors that set rare and valuable examples apart from the rest. First, it all comes down to condition. A coin in mint state, especially one that has never been circulated, is already going to be worth more to collectors. These are the coins that have no scratches, no discoloration, and razor-sharp details. A 1971 quarter that has been professionally graded at MS-65 or higher instantly grabs the attention of numismatists, and depending on the demand, can go for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Second, certain mint marks can influence value. For example, 1971 quarters with a strong, clear D mint mark from Denver or an S from San Francisco can command more attention, especially if the strike is crisp and the luster is still strong. These details matter when determining the coin's overall grade and desirability, but the real game changer? Minting errors. That's right, some of the most valuable 1971 Washington quarters are worth what they are because of mistakes made at the mint. We're talking about double die errors, where the letters or numbers appear doubled. Or off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing because the coin wasn't properly aligned during minting. There are even coins that were struck on the wrong planchets, blanks meant for nickels or foreign coins. These rare mishaps are like golden tickets for collectors, because they're not supposed to exist. And when one shows up, it creates a buzz. Imagine finding a 1971 quarter with a dramatic double die on the date or the word Liberty. Or a coin that's missing part of the eagle's wing because it was struck off-center. These aren't just coins anymore, they're rare collectibles that people are willing to pay big bucks to get their hands on. There's also something to be said about full strike details. When you look at a high-grade 1971 quarter under magnification, a truly valuable one will show incredibly detailed features, like the strands of hair on Washington's head, the feather texture on the eagle, and clean, bold lettering. These details mean the coin was struck early in the die's life, making it sharper and more valuable. But how do you know if your 1971 quarter is the one? First step, check the mint mark. Then examine the coin's overall condition. If you think it might be in excellent shape, the best thing you can do is have it graded by a reputable third-party service like PCGS or NGC. These experts will determine the coin's authenticity, grade, and any special errors or features. Once that's done, the coin can be properly valued, and possibly entered into auctions or listed among top collectors' wishlists. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. While most 1971 quarters are still only worth face value, there are rare examples, especially with high grades or error varieties, that have sold for absolutely mind-blowing prices. In fact, one remarkable 1971 Washington quarter dollar with a rare error and in pristine condition sold for an astonishing $82,000. Yes, you heard that right, $82,000 for a single quarter. That's a fortune packed into something smaller than a cookie. So don't underestimate your change. Take a closer look, especially at those 1971 quarters with a mint mark. What might seem ordinary could actually be the hidden treasure you've been sitting on this whole time. Today. Because hidden among what looks like just another quarter could be something truly special, something that's not just rare, but worth a staggering amount of money. Today we're talking about one of the most intriguing coins in U.S. history, the 1965 Washington quarter. Now, at first glance, the 1965 quarter doesn't seem like anything unusual. You've probably seen dozens of them in circulation. They're common. They feel light, they don't look silver, and most people wouldn't even give them a second thought. But that's exactly why this story is so fascinating, because buried in that common-looking design is a history full of change, confusion, and incredibly rare errors that have turned some of these coins into true collector's treasures. Let's take a step back into the mid-1960s. The United States Mint was facing a crisis. There was a nationwide coin shortage. Why? Because silver prices were rising fast, and people were hoarding coins, especially those made from silver. The government had to act quickly, so in 1965, they made a big decision. Quarters, dimes, and half dollars would no longer be minted in 90% silver. Instead, they would be made with a copper-nickel clad composition layered over a solid copper core. It was a new era in American coinage, but with change comes confusion and opportunity. You see, during that transition, some chaos occurred at the mint. 1964 was the last official year for silver quarters. But here's where things get exciting. A few 1,965 quarters were accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets, the metal blanks used for the 1964 coins. And this is what makes certain 1965 quarters so unbelievably valuable. Now, most 1965 quarters were made from copper-nickel, and you can tell by looking at the coin's edge. A modern clad quarter has a visible copper-colored edge when you look at it from the side. But a silver quarter will have a solid silver edge, with no copper line. If you ever find a 1965 quarter and the edge doesn't show that copper color, it might be something extraordinary. That's your first clue, but silver planchets aren't the only reason collectors go crazy over these coins. Some 1965 quarters have been discovered with incredible minting errors, double dies, off-center strikes, or coins struck with missing clad layers that expose the copper beneath. Each of these errors makes the coin unique, and uniqueness is what fuels the value in the coin collecting world. You might be wondering, why didn't these mistakes get caught? Well, in 1965, the mint also made another major change. They stopped using mint marks altogether, for 3 full years, 1965, 1966, and 1967. The idea was to discourage coin hoarding by making all coins look the same, regardless of which mint they came from. So that means no little D for Denver or S for San Francisco on coins from that period. And that also makes it harder to trace where specific errors may have originated, adding a bit of mystery to the story. Now imagine this, a coin that was meant to be ordinary, made in a time of economic adjustment and uncertainty, somehow gets struck in silver by mistake, or is misaligned, or carries a minting flaw that sets it apart from millions of others. That's the kind of coin that serious collectors dream of finding, and pay serious money to own. And if the coin has been preserved well, if it hasn't been beaten up in circulation, if it still has its luster, if the design is crisp with visible hair detail on Washington's portrait and clean feathers on the eagle, that value jumps even higher. The grading of a coin, from AU, about uncirculated, to MS, mint state, can mean the difference between a small premium and a jaw-dropping price tag. So, what should you look for? Start with the edge of your 1965 quarter. Is there any copper showing? If not, you might be looking at a silver error. Check the weight. A clad quarter weighs about 5.67 grams, but a silver one weighs around 6.25 grams. That small difference can make a huge impact. And if you think you've got something rare, don't guess, get it authenticated by a professional grading service. That step alone can open the door to auctions, private collectors, and a whole world of opportunities, and now, let's talk about just how high that opportunity can climb. While most 1965 quarters are only worth their face value, a rare few, especially those struck on silver planchets or with rare mint errors, have stunned the numismatic world. One such coin, verified and sold at a major auction, brought in a breathtaking amount. Not just a few hundred, not just a few thousand. A 1965 Washington quarter dollar, with the right error and in outstanding condition, has been valued at $85,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. $85,000 for a single quarter. A coin that could have slipped through the cracks, disappeared into a vending machine, or been dropped in the bottom of a change jar for decades. And yet, because of one tiny mistake, and a bit of luck, it became a piece of American history worth more than many people's cars, or even a year's salary. So go check your change. Dig through your coin collection. Look closely at those 1965 quarters. You never know, you might be holding on to something truly priceless. Today, we're diving into a piece of American currency that might look like your everyday pocket change, but could be worth far more than just 25 cents. If you've ever handled a quarter dated 1978, you might want to take a second look, because there's a hidden story behind this coin. A story that could lead you straight to a coin valued in the tens of thousands. That's right. Today, we're exploring the fascinating world of the 1978 Washington quarter dollar, specifically, those struck with mint marks. It's a coin that's often overlooked, but as you'll find out in this video, it's full of surprises. Let's start with a little background. The Washington quarter has been in circulation since 1932, honoring the first president of the United States, George Washington. By 1978, the design was well established and familiar. On the front, or obverse, is the left-facing portrait of Washington himself, with the word Liberty above, and the date, 1978, below. On the reverse side is the bold, spread-winged American eagle perched on a bundle of arrows, surrounded by olive branches, classic symbols of strength and peace. But while the design stayed consistent, the details of how these coins were produced in 1978 can make all the difference in their value today. In 1978, the United States Mint was producing quarters at 3 primary locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins minted in Denver bear the D mint mark, while those from San Francisco show an S. Interestingly, coins from Philadelphia during that time did not carry any mint mark at all. You can find the mint mark on the front of the coin, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. So why is this important? Because mint marks can play a huge role in a coin's collectability, especially when combined with rare minting errors, condition, and low production anomalies. You see, most 1978 quarters were made for everyday use. They were tossed into pockets, dropped in vending machines, and jingled around in change purses for decades. The vast majority were worn down by regular use. So finding one in perfect, uncirculated condition is already rare. But here's where things get exciting. There are known examples of 1978 quarters, particularly those with the Denver D mint mark, that were struck with unusual errors. Double dies, off-center strikes, weak strikes, missing clad layers, and other minting mishaps are all documented. These errors weren't supposed to happen, but when they did, they created coins that collectors now chase like treasure. Imagine a 1978 quarter where the lettering appears doubled, or one that struck slightly off-center so that part of the design spills over the edge of the coin. There are even reports of quarters being struck on the wrong metal blanks, like one meant for a foreign coin or a different denomination. These are the kinds of errors that transform a common coin into a numismatic gem. Now here's something else that's critical: coin condition. Grading is everything in the coin collecting world. Coins are typically graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a flawless, mint state example. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin, especially when it's combined with rarity or a dramatic mint error. A 1978 quarter that has never seen circulation, with sharp edges, mirror-like surfaces, and deep detail on both the obverse and reverse, can skyrocket in value. That's why serious collectors and investors turn to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. These organizations authenticate and grade coins, and their certification can dramatically increase the coin's market price. A coin that might seem ordinary at first glance could turn out to be one of the rarest examples ever struck, once placed under the microscope. Let's not forget about proof coins. While circulation strikes were made for the general public, San Francisco also produced proof versions of the 1978 quarter. These coins were not meant for spending, they were made for collectors and featured incredibly sharp detail and polished surfaces. While most of these proof coins remain common, a small number with striking flaws or missing layers have been discovered, making them highly collectible. So what does this all mean for you? It means that a quarter you might already have, a coin minted in 1978 with a D or S mint mark, could be worth examining more closely. If it has unusual features, perfect condition, or was struck with an error, it may be far more valuable than anyone expected. And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, the potential value. While many 1978 quarters are only worth face value, and even common uncirculated ones might be worth a few dollars, there are very rare examples out there. Coins that have been preserved in immaculate condition, coins with significant errors, or coins struck on the wrong planchet can fetch extraordinary prices at auction. One such example, a 1978 Washington quarter, with a rare error and in perfect mint condition, has been valued at an astonishing $78,000. Yes, you heard that right. $78,000. For a single coin that most people wouldn't give a second glance. It's stories like these that remind us that treasure is often hiding in plain sight. And the most valuable coins aren't always the ones made of gold or silver, they're the ones with a unique story, a rare error, or a perfect strike. So if you've got an old stash of coins, or a pile of change you've been meaning to sort through, now might be the time. You never know what you'll find. That ordinary-looking 1978 quarter with a small mint mark could turn out to be something truly incredible. Thanks for watching, and if you love discovering the hidden value of coins and exploring the fascinating world of numismatics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a future episode. Until next time, keep hunting, keep collecting, and who knows, your next coin might just be worth a fortune.